The silence that followed the devastating artillery barrage lasted only moments before it was shattered by the sound of marching boots. From the Ottoman lines, thousands of elite janissaries advanced in disciplined formation toward the shattered breaches in the fortress walls. Their movement was steady and deliberate, signaling the beginning of one of the most brutal phases of the siege. Recognized as the backbone of the Ottoman military, the Janissaries were deployed for tasks requiring absolute precision and determination. Clad in distinctive uniforms and carrying a combination of firearms and blades, they advanced under strict command. Officers maintained tight control of their ranks, ensuring cohesion as they approached the broken defenses. The battlefield between the Ottoman lines and the fortress was scarred by the earlier bombardment. Rubble and craters made the advance treacherous, yet the Janissaries pressed forward without hesitation. Covering fire from supporting units attempted to suppress the defenders on the walls, creating a narrow window for the assault force. Inside the fortress, the defenders reacted swiftly to the sight of the advancing formations. Officers shouted orders as troops rushed to reinforce the breached sections. Weapons were raised, and defensive positions were manned with urgency. The exhausted garrison understood that this attack would test their endurance to its limits. As the Janissaries reached the base of the shattered walls, they deployed ladders and used piles of rubble as improvised ramps. The first wave began climbing, shields raised against incoming arrows and gunfire. Defenders unleashed a concentrated barrage, striking at the attackers as they struggled upward. The initial clash at the breaches was immediate and violent. Janissaries who gained the top of the wall engaged in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Swords clashed and the confined space amplified the chaos. Every step forward was contested with desperate resistance. Ottoman commanders fed additional waves into the assault, determined to overwhelm the defenders through sustained pressure. The disciplined formations allowed fresh troops to replace fallen comrades quickly. This relentless rotation maintained the momentum of the attack. The defenders responded with coordinated counterattacks. Small units surged toward the breaches, attempting to push the Janissaries back down the walls. Close quarters combat erupted in multiple locations simultaneously, transforming the ramparts into scenes of intense struggle. Smoke from gunfire mingled with dust from the shattered stone, reducing visibility. Commands were relayed through shouted signals and gestures as officers fought to maintain control. Both sides operated in an environment where confusion could prove fatal. Despite heavy casualties, the Janissaries continued their advance. Their training emphasized discipline under pressure, and they executed their orders with unwavering focus. Some units established temporary footholds inside the outer defenses, prompting urgent responses from the garrison. Within the fortress, reserves were committed to seal these penetrations. Fighting spilled into narrow passageways and interior barricades. The confined terrain intensified the brutality of the engagement, leaving little room for maneuver. Medical teams struggled to reach the wounded amid the ongoing combat. Stretcher bearers navigated dangerous routes while the clash raged around them. The human cost of the assault mounted rapidly, visible in every contested corner of the battlefield. From their vantage points, Ottoman commanders observed the progress of the Janissaries and directed reinforcements to critical points. Signals coordinated the timing of successive waves, ensuring continuous pressure on the defenders. The defenders relied on intimate knowledge of the fortress layout to slow the advance. Makeshift barricades and choke points forced the attackers into narrow fronts where resistance could be concentrated. Every defended step bought precious time. Hours of relentless combat followed. Neither side yielded easily. The Janissaries' discipline met the defenders' determination in a grinding contest of strength and will. The outcome remained uncertain, as both forces absorbed severe losses. Gradually, the intensity of the fighting began to strain even the elite assault troops. Extended engagement in close quarters tested their endurance. The defenders, though exhausted, drew motivation from the urgency of protecting their stronghold. As the day wore on, the battlefield became a patchwork of contested positions. Some breaches changed hands multiple times. Commanders on both sides adapted their tactics in real time, seeking any advantage that could tip the balance. By late afternoon, the assault reached a critical juncture. The Janissaries launched a concentrated push at the largest breach, supported by renewed covering fire. The defenders massed their remaining strength to meet the threat. The clash that followed was among the fiercest of the entire siege. Combatants fought at arm's length, driven by opposing imperatives of conquest and survival. The noise of battle echoed across the fortress as each side struggled to assert control. When the momentum of the assault finally slowed, both armies bore the marks of a brutal encounter. The Janissaries had demonstrated their formidable capability, penetrating deep into contested ground. The defenders, despite overwhelming pressure, had managed to prevent a decisive breakthrough. As evening approached, the fighting subsided into tense standoffs along the damaged walls. Exhausted soldiers regrouped, tending to the wounded and reinforcing positions. The battlefield remained volatile, with both sides anticipating further action. The storming of the breaches by the elite Janissaries marked a defining moment in the siege. It showcased the scale of the Ottoman commitment and the resilience of the fortress defenders. The brutal close-quarters combat underscored the high stakes of the conflict. In the fading light, the shattered walls stood as silent witnesses to the day's violence. The struggle for the fortress was far from over, but the events of the assault had already etched themselves into the memory of all who fought there. Both armies prepared for what would come next, aware that the siege had entered its most dangerous phase. The elite assault had tested every limit, leaving a battlefield transformed by courage, discipline, and relentless determination.